Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today it's time for Monk, one of the jobs that I was quite excited for when we saw the job action trailer. And as I've mentioned before, it was going to be either this or Reaper that I would level as my first melee. In the end, I went with Reaper simply because Monk doesn't really change between 80 and 90, whereas Reaper does get a fair amount of changes between those levels. So I wanted to experience said changes first before I went back to leveling Monk, and then now I've finally gotten around to finishing that. Now, Monk is probably the only job so far that I felt like I needed some extra time on before I could grasp the basics of what I'm supposed to do. And even after putting in some time, I still feel like I need more. If I look at it from a casual perspective, then Monk isn't all that hard. They removed a lot of positionals and the new blitz system is also quite easy to grasp. But when it comes down to playing it optimally, there's a lot of room for skill expression. In essence, the Masterful Blitz is as simple as get your 2 different nadis and then use Phantom Rush on your 3rd usage. But when you look to optimize it, you want to use your perfect balance during your burst windows and also on specific skill combinations so that you can get the most out of perfect balance. And it's identifying those windows that I need more practice at. So if you're just looking to get into Monk, it's really easy to pick up and play, but if you want to sink in the time to show your mastery on the job, then you can do so. So it's very fitting that they called it Masterful Blitz. Now, despite this rework, the core of Monk has remained the same. We still have our 3 different forms, or stances, whichever you prefer to call them, and our 6 GCDs are also still the same. Dragon Kick makes Bootshine stronger, Twin Snakes gives you that damage buff, and Demolish wants to be applied every 3rd combo rotation. So that has still stayed the same. However, they removed 4 positionals. So when they first announced the rework, they said that they would remove positionals of Twin Snakes and True Strike. And with our rotations sometimes making it so that we don't use Dragon Kick Twin Snakes into Bootshine True Strike, but do Dragon Kick True Strike into Bootshine Twin Snakes instead, I could see why they would do that, because that's a lot of running around the boss you would be doing. Now with Endwalker going live, they've also removed the positionals from Dragon Kick and Bootshine, so we're left with only 2 positionals, which feels really weird, because Monk has always been that positional job, and now it's not anymore. And at first I was really not a fan of this, but now that I've played it more, I can get behind the decision, because there are already a lot of things that you have to pay attention to, so adding 6 positionals on top of that can get a bit much. I know that for some that want to master Monk, this might have added to the challenge, but I also know that Square Enix has wanted to bring the skill floor and the skill ceiling closer together, so this would be a logical choice, seeing how Monk had the biggest DPS discrepancy between those that would hit positionals and those that would not, whereas with the other melees that difference was a whole lot lower. Would I still like to get them back? Absolutely. Maybe not the ones on Twin Snake and True Strike, but Dragon Kick and Bootshine I would like to see return. Now, the main reason why I would like to get them back is because the downtime between bursts feels a bit empty right now. Our burst windows are really fun, because that's where we get to play around with our Masterful Blitz, but during our downtime, we're not really doing that much. We're just rolling our GCD and sometimes using a Forbidden Chakra when that's up. But luckily enough, our burst is now every minute, so we don't have to wait too long before we get to the fun part again. So I guess I should also mention that as well. Riddle of Fire is now on a 60-second cooldown, and Brotherhood is now on 2 minutes. So it lines up really well with our other raid buffs and also with our own rotation. But then of course we have Riddle of Wind, the odd one out, because this one is for some reason on a 90-second cooldown. And then the skill itself is also kind of a bit weird, I guess, because it gives you a 50% attack speed buff on your auto attacks. But in essence, I guess this is just like any other random damage off global cooldown that you'll press whenever it's ready. Although, I guess you'll need to make sure that you can keep uptime on the boss while its duration is active, because otherwise you're going to be losing out on those extra auto attacks, which do make up for quite a bit of your damage output. Some other skills that are still kind of there are Anatman. This thing is still kind of useless. I mean, yeah, you can use it to save your Disciplined Fist, which is the new name for the Twin Snakes damage buff, but I guess I just wanted it to be a bit more than that. Getting the damage buff is super easy, so just carrying it through some downtime isn't really going to do too much. Sure, if you're optimizing, then you want to use this, but I just wanted it to be more than just a tool to keep your Twin Snakes buff during downtime. Six-sided star is also still the same, although I don't really mind this one that much. I kinda like just greeting that last GCD before you sprint away from the boss, or as a last GCD before the boss goes away for downtime. Never really minded this skill too much, and seeing how it hasn't changed, I still feel that way about it. Something that did get changed is our gap closer. So we no longer have shoulder tackle, we now have thunderclap instead. And at first, I was not happy about this, because it would be yet another off-global cooldown that we are losing, but over the short span of time that this expansion has been out, I've grown quite fond of these new gap closers. I love Icarus on Sage, Ethereal Manipulation on Black Mage is sort of similar as well, although you can't target the boss with it, and honestly I kinda want to be able to do that now, after having experienced it on Monk and Sage. If I were to go into my full thoughts and such on gap closers, then we'll be here for a while, so I might just make that into a separate video. Just know that I'm a very big fan of Thunderclap. It looks cool as fuck and it's snappy, and there have been a few dungeons where you can really make use of this. Let's take for example a level 85 dungeon, first boss. Whenever he does that mechanic where you get the pointer over your head that disorients you and then you have to run to the safe spot, well, instead of trying to run over to the safe spot, I just wait for a teammate to get there first. I thunderclap to my teammate right before the AoE goes off, and then I thunderclap right back to the boss. It's just really satisfying. Brotherhood also got a slight change in the sense that you're now guaranteed to get chakras whenever you use a global cooldown. So I guess that's still kind of the last negative thing left to talk about for Monk, are chakras, because there's still no overflow solution, and during your normal rotation you won't really be feeling this all too much because, well, we don't have that many off-global cooldowns left, but when you use Brotherhood you're going to be getting chakras really fast, and then sometimes you're just not going to be able to use them in time before you start losing them, because you can't press the forbidden chakra fast enough, or because you just have to weave other off-global cooldowns, and with our fast GCD not everyone can double weave on Monk, myself included. So I still hope that they might implement a fix for this at some point. Maybe they can do something like they have for Reaper, where your off-global cooldowns need 50 gauge, but it can cap all the way to 100, so why not make the chakra gauge go all the way to 10 and only require 5 for the forbidden chakra? I feel like that's a pretty easy fix without making Monk easier to play. It's just some quality of life. And I think that with that, I've touched on just about all of the changes. Masterful Blitz is a really fun addition. The core of Monk has remained the same, and even though we lost some positionals and some off-global cooldowns, I still feel like it's really fun to play. I'll definitely need more practice on it though, before I can feel good about my performance on the job, but it's really fun to learn, so I don't mind putting in the time to get better at it. And I think that does it for today's video, so I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.